Last episode, I said I thought there were 4 players that could really use a move. Let's go see if any of that has happened. As always, my friends, it's June 30th of 2029, and the first thing I'm catching on the screen way over there is AC Milan have a new manager? Trouble. Chase was at the top of the short list, so let's go take a look, and he's still with PSG too. Shoot. I'm not understanding the transfer valuations in Football Manager, but that's a thing people complain about fairly often, is that the valuations changed dramatically. That's the case here. He's down to 1.2 to 3.7 million. Previously was valued 32 to 96 million. That's a joke. It appears at first glance as if Chase is just rotting in the PSG second team. He's gotten a €2,000 raise. Probably that's like a 5% raise or whatever it was from the last time. He's up to 38.5 grand a week. He's got still 3 years left on this contract. To be fair, Chase is probably loving life. He's in Paris. He's rich. He's playing for a second team. You know, it's not like that competitive probably. There are worse ways to spend your time, I guess, as a young lad at 22 and a half years old now. Paris is pretty nice, I'm sure. Popping us over to the history, he gets 33, not 34 starts, so he must have had an injury or something, or maybe he got called away for an international match. We'll check it out. 27 conceded, 14 clean sheets, a 6.85. Kind of average for wherever PSG2 play. And I've just noticed he doesn't have any international call-ups. Ooh. That's concerning. Yeah, his caps have not gone up. Uh-oh, that's not good. He doesn't have serious injuries over this time period. He's got a pulled thigh, a fractured finger, and a bruised ankle. He misses a total of, what is that, like 4 weeks? Something like that? That's not bad. 2-star reputation, same agent. Teammate comparison, similar type of player to Donnarumma. But he's not playing. How similar are we talking? Just technically? Like, he just doesn't have the mentals and physicals? He's fluent in French, as you would expect. So he's been called in to the Australian senior team, but it appears he is the backup behind Bilo Kapic, who plays for Watford. And is he actually playing? Yes, he is actually playing. So it reminds me right now of the U.S. men's national team, where it's like, hey, Matt Turner, you need to go play someplace. And so he goes to Lyon, which is a disaster because they're like, we don't want him because we're broke and trying to justify to UEFA why we should still be in our competitions, or maybe it's the French football authority why they shouldn't be relegated. But anyway, you've got Bilo Kapic, sorry if that's incorrect, actually playing. Chase is not, therefore Chase is the backup. Obviously Chase is lower on the pecking order. He's younger by 4 years as well, so he's got that. But he does have some competition now that his value has dramatically dropped. And is that just that he turned 22, so he's no longer a youngster, like 21? I have no idea. But he's got Anthony Pavlesic, and he looks somewhat similar, I think, if you look between the... Okay, Chase is significantly better technically on most things, but he's got some competition now for that backup spot. I'm going to try to remember to do this as we go throughout, moving forward, or every couple of years. Because there's not a whole lot to show you on Chase right now. In Australia, seasonal best 11, overall best 11, and seasonal best 11, in 27 to 28. And they win the Coupe de France in 2028 as well. That's about it. And at least this time I remembered, up here, to put the attribute analysis. I'm going to hop in here just real quick, my friends. About 300 people were watching the episodes of this series. The first episode got, at the time I'm recording this, about 75 or so likes. The second episode got 55 or so, and obviously it goes down over time. If you're enjoying this, it really does help the algorithm. If you watch the video, if you watch as much of it as possible, the longer the better, and if you hit the like button and or leave a comment. So if you wouldn't mind to do that, it really does help the algorithm, and therefore that helps me stay motivated to keep doing this. Thanks. I think we're going to move on. There's not a whole lot to show you. Sorry, Chase. Maybe next time. All right, we move on to Marcus because he was the other player I was kind of interested if they got relegated, if he's going to play. He's gotten a lot of international caps. Oh, I think his dribbling's gone down. That's the first thing. I think it's some 15s on the technicals. His value is 17.5 to 53 million, which seems like it's also gone down. Looks like they got promoted. He does get 2 starts. Teleport myself over here. He gets 2 starts, 9 subs, 2 goals, 6.88. One of his goals is a penalty. a cup start and a sub on a 6.95, and 6 international starts with 3 goals and an assist, where he's, again, a 6.88. He's not exactly lighting it up like he used to, so that's interesting as well. That is just not enough playing time. They must have reloaded. He's on the original contract, still has the active relegation rule. Why? Wait a minute. Is it because they got relegated last season and technically it's still last season, but then they got promoted at the end of the year? That would be incredibly harsh. It's June 30th and somebody comes in and goes, yeah, 12 months ago you got relegated, so I'm gonna activate that before it's officially the next season. What? As you might expect out of a player who's on a squad player contract and only got 2 starts and 9 subs, he's concerned. Is he concerned enough to move? Is a different thing entirely. It looks like they loaned in Nikola Josic, or Josic maybe, who clearly is a better player. And I think they've probably changed the system. They are playing, it looks like a 4-3-3, therefore only 1 striker. But therefore you would think he would have gotten more playing time than he did. In fact, surprisingly, now this guy looks more like a right winger, but he also plays striker, so he might be some competition. He gets 4 starts and 17 subs. Hopefully that's not a striker. Oh, Nelson Viper's still here. I thought he'd moved on, but he was just in a different part of the squad screen. Maybe you saw it before I did. He gets 18 starts and 12 subs with 14 goals on a 7.25. He actually lights up the second Bundesliga, or the Zweite Bundesliga. Marcus also starts the season. Oh, talk about a rough way to start your season. He goes out with a hip injury in a match versus Rain. I thought it said in the rain. Versus Rain? What's Rain? Apparently that's TSV 1896 Rein am Lech, who are like a low, it must have been in a cup. Yeah, in the DFB Pokal first round. Oh, Marcus does a 7.1 and gets a horrific injury. In the 3rd minute, what is with our players getting injured in the first 5 minutes of games? 3rd minute. Also, how did you go from 0 to 3 minutes and get a 7.1? That doesn't make sense. What? But regardless, he's out for 2 months at the start of the season, which is like, well, there goes your opportunity in those early cup rounds and so on and so forth. And then they loan in another guy. I wonder if they loaned in that guy because Marcus went down, and now you've lost your spot for an entire season, essentially. Oh, that is brutal. Strangely, Marcus's value actually hasn't gone down. I just checked. It's exactly the same. So that's interesting. That's interesting, I guess. Let's look at some potentially happier moments for Marcus. He is part of a 4-4-2 leading the line for Indonesia. He gets back into the mix in November, in the November window. This is AFC World Cup qualifiers in the 3rd round, Group C. They lose to South Korea 2-0. He does a 6.5. They beat the Philippines 3-1. He does a 7.5 with a goal in the 66th minute. They then beat the Philippines in the championship Group A, but he doesn't participate in that one, which was 9 days later. He's not even on the bench. Maybe he's just not involved in the AFC championship at all because he doesn't make any of the roster there. And then coming into 2029, he's back in the mix for the World Cup qualifiers. So he does a 6.5 and a loss to Uzbekistan. They beat Palestine 3-1. He scores in the 1st minute. Lots of like early goal action for our guys and injuries. This time he escapes without an injury and does a 7.3. Then they lose to Saudi Arabia 3-2. Marcus Thuram and a player named Sunday Song score. Interesting. Marcus does a 6.8 with a goal. Not the best rating, you could argue. And then he does a 6.7 and a loss to South Korea. That sounds like Indonesia in a tough spot. They're currently in the playoff spots, 2 points ahead of the Philippines. Oh no, they've made it to the playoffs against Iraq and Qatar. Okay, so he's got that coming up in the next window in October. So again, not a whole lot to show you. This might be a short episode. I told you I thought there were 4 players that needed moves, and if none of them got moves, there's not a whole lot to show. Here's Marcus's milestones. It's as we expected, right? So winning the Golden Boot in 2027, then the Asian Nations Cup. Not bad. He makes it into the Mainz seasonal best 11 in 2027. How? How did he do that? That's, same thing in 2029. How is he named into the seasonal best 11? He hardly played. Okay, let's go take a look at Gustav and see if he's moved or gotten playing time or gotten a loan or anything like that. He's still with Juve. 23 grand a week. He got 2 starts and a sub on a 6.8. For the senior team, to be fair, so we've gotten out of the next gen thing. I don't know if that means we've aged out of the next gen thing. I don't know how that works. He also has 3 international starts on a 6.67. It's not exactly lighting the world on fire. It's like he went from having 1 sub to 1 sub and 2 starts. So like he's tripled his playing time potentially, or maybe more if you consider the minutes. Again, Football Manager, SI. I'd love to see the minutes on this screen. He's not missed significant amount of time due to injury. He just had a bruised ankle a couple months ago for 2 days. His value has dropped from 17.5 on the low end to 11.5, and now 52 million on the high end down to 34. Again, the ranges are so varied, but yeah. And did he have a 16 on tackling? Yeah, he did. I just checked. So he's dropped tackling. Passing's gone down a little bit. He's gained 3 pounds. It's all that pasta, my man. I think last time we thought that there was 3 center backs. Maybe they've changed the system there. They're now in a 4-3-3. Gustav is now 6th on the bench. My guess is that means that is their preference of bringing the player on versus like, you know, a lot of players do the goalkeeper to striker thing. It looks like they had a loaned in center back DM midfielder. So of like pure center backs, he's the first option, but maybe they just never played him. What a squad. Zombie Simons, Anthony Gordon, Zaniolo, Dusan Vlahovic, Eric Garcia, Jordan Pickford at 35. He's the backup, but he's starting. He's the backup on 115 grand, the starters on 37 grand. First choice. Odd. What's also interesting is Gustav is on a contract for another 2 years, not another 3 years. So again, they're kind of getting into that point of, are we going to play this guy or is he just going to sign another extension? You know, who knows? 2.5 star reputation, no plans, is enjoying being at the club. Media opinion, needs to play more regular club football. Yeah, I would agree with that. Moving over to the Hungarian squad, he is also 6th sub on the bench, which is kind of interesting, 22 years old. Again, some of the players they've got on the bench are pretty young. So he's backing up what is the likes of Zalai and Balog, maybe is how you say that. He has higher value than both of them, but I'm guessing they're playing, right? So one is at Udinese, so also in Italy, and he's at Hoffenheim. So these guys are playing, or are they playing? Yeah, they're playing. So what's interesting here is in the autumn of 2028, he doesn't play at all. He's not in the Nations League B group team for Hungary. And you kind of wonder, is that because he has fallen out of favor or because they are just bringing in a separate rotation of players? Although Zaboslai is playing, so surely that's not a weakened squad, right? Because Zaboslai's backing, you know, kind of hopping ahead in a win against Andorra. And Farkas does play in the World Cup qualifiers. So he doesn't make the Nations League team, but he makes the World Cup qualifying team, which you argue is obviously more important. So he starts against Kosovo on a 6.6. They draw them there. They lose the game 3-2 to Belgium. They give up a first-minute goal, but he does a 6.9. Kind of a mixed bag. Kirkez does a 6.5. Orban does a 7.3. Gustav does a 6.9. And Zalai does a 7.4. So half of your back line did okay, and half of it did pretty well. Gustav is in the okay section, I guess. Then he plays against Peru, starts on a 6.5 in a draw. But then he doesn't play. He's on the bench, but he doesn't play against Andorra. So I kind of look at it as this coming fall is really a potentially big opportunity for Gustav because he's not really playing at club level. The media say he's not playing enough. Can he elevate his status in the game by staying in the World Cup squad and getting more attention there, potentially getting a move? Or is he going to, even if he does that, is he going to have to like outperform and do like a 7.1 consistently? Like as a center back, that's hard, but to get enough attention to get out of Juventus. So again, not a ton to go in depth on. As a reminder, I'll take a screenshot of the attribute screen and drop it on the free portion of my Patreon. You can go check it out there. And here's Gustav's milestones as well. Named in the seasonal best 11 in 2028 for Hungary and in 2027. Doesn't do a whole lot for Juve. So you can pause if you want to take a deeper dive. Not a lot to look at. All right, James was our 4th player that I thought personally needed to move. He's still with Benfica. Has he played? Not really. Not really. He gets a start and 7 subs for Benfica in the league. He gets a goal on a 6.88. He also gets 4 appearances total in the Cup. Does okay there. Gets 2 appearances in Continental Europe. doesn't go so well and gets one international start with a goal on a 7.1. Hopefully it wasn't in the second minute and he wrecked himself in the 4th minute. It also shows he has some B team appearances, 2 B team starts with a goal on a 6.9. I wonder if that's like a getting him back from an injury or something like that. Nope, he's relatively injury free, misses 2 days with a bruised ankle. So he's picked up an extra cap and a goal. He's making 46 grand a week. As a 22-year-old, I thought he would be doing better. He's got some really good technical skills. That really surprises me that they're not utilizing him more. They must have really good players, but it's like, if you're not going to utilize him, is it just like we're sitting on an asset that we know is good and he's got another 3 years left? He's worth 10 to 30 million, right? Like, we're going to see how that plays out. The squad screen as it sits right now has him in the starting spot, which is odd, but he's still on a squad player contract. And he's listed as concerned now, so he's not happy with the situation. Here's where I get concerned. You're telling me this guy cannot get any playing time? Look at the number of games Benfica plays 4 days apart. They got the Champions League. They throw the Taca de Pocha got third round, right? Then 3 days later, another Champions League. Like, there are games all over the place. How is he not getting a chance? He starts the first game of the season in the Supertaca Candido de Oliveira and comes off in the 48th minute, which is interesting. And he's on the bench for the first league game of the season, just doesn't come off the bench. In the third league game, he comes off the bench and does a 6.8. In the fourth league game, he comes off the bench, but not enough to earn a rating. So he's like last guy off the bench type situation. Comes on as a sub again on the 1st of September here. In the 61st minute, they have Jack Grealish, by the way. He's not in the Champions League squad, it doesn't look like, because he's not showing up on it. No, he is in the Champions League squad. No, that's the League Cup. He's on this Champions League squad as well. So he's in the squad, he's just not subbing on. He subs on, without a rating at the end of the game. So it actually looks like in the first couple months of the season, let's call it that, he's at least in the mix. Like, he's every so often he's coming on. Maybe it's like the 85th minute or something like that. But he's at least getting a bit of a sniff, but what happens the rest of the season? So I'm not going to show you all of this, but like going down through the entire season, he's in most of the games on the bench on the side. And then they go to the Club World Cup. He's on the bench against Pyramids where they win 4-1. He's on the bench. Benfica have a man sent off for a straight red in the 4th minute. And they still beat LA Galaxy 1-0. Excellent for MLS there. And then he plays against El Ittihad. He starts and does a 6.5. Okay. Again, here's his milestones, right? It shows that he's bought by Benfica, specifically the Benfica under-19s. That's a little bit more clear. First international cap against Australia at 19. International goal against South Korea at age 20. Wins the league in 2027. Was named in the seasonal best 11. Okay, for BVT, right? He gets loaned out to Boavista. My brain just read the Texans at BVT. He's in the Colombia seasonal best 11. He's also in the seasonal best 11 for Benfica in 2028. Shows that, they won the league. And then obviously in 2029, the cup winners, they win the league and the cup. So they do the treble. Well, actually, oh. And again, like, as a young guy, maybe that is a little bit okay that he's only got the 2 starts and 9 subs, but for a squad player, you would hope that he would have gotten 10 starts and 10 subs, right? Or 5 starts and 15 subs. He's there, he just hasn't really broken through yet. We'll have to see if he does next time. All right, let's go to happier places. Let's go see CDB and AC Milan, who does have a new manager. He's now on 500,000 euros a week. He is the superstar of this save. He is a world-class midfielder. Remember I said, I had the realization, oh, he's 21 and a half, or maybe it was 20 and a half. He's still going to develop. He's doing that, you could say. Goodness me. 145 to 434 million. I'm guessing he's played a bit. Let's go check. Yes. Now, he only does 32 starts and 1 sub in the league with a bunch of goals and assists, 7 goals, 6 assists on a 7.2. 7.2 in Serie A. You are bossing it, my man. Also plays in the Cup a bunch, 8 continental starts, 11 international starts with a goal and 2 assists. Every rating he has is a 7.05 or higher. Not bad. Not bad. I'd say AC Milan's pretty happy with their 31 million that they gave Inter Miami. No major injuries. He only misses a couple days with a little niggling, tight hamstring, bruised shin. So he's also he's a superstar, but also a healthy one, which is important. Ooh, AC Milan did not win the league. They come in second. Is that why Klopp left, or did Klopp retire? No, it looks like he left of his own accord, I think, in just like 2 weeks ago. So Klopp leaves, says, I've done everything. I've won the league 3 times. I got 2 cup wins. We'll see you later. Will Roberto De Zerbi still appreciate CDB? I would imagine so, but you never know. It does look like they're playing a 4-3-3 CDB now on the right side. I think the last time we looked, he was on the left side. It's Curtis Jones on the left side. Okay. Interesting. When you look at the squad screen, CDB is on a star player contract. He's concerned. Is he concerned because Klopp left and like Klopp's his favorite? It doesn't mention being unhappy or anything like that. I would love to know why he's concerned. He's a star player for his country. Well, he's also a star player for his club, right? He's got 3.5-star superb reputation. He's still with Eric Eriksen. Eric Eriksen is very happy he picked up CDB as a youngster. Good choice. It looks like AC Milan were knocked out of the Champions League by Man City. Not CDB's fault. He does a 7.8 in that game. Their goalkeeper has a 5.7. Oh dear, just noticed that. That's in the first leg too. The second leg they draw, he does a 6.2. Okay, I didn't see that. CDB didn't do so great in the second leg. He was just demoralized about the first leg. The keeper has a slightly better game, you could argue, but they also win the Coppa Italia. CDB does an 8.1, scores the first goal, but it takes a late 75th minute winner by Inigo Martin, maybe, to get that one over the line. They did lose the league to Inter Milan. They are currently predicted to finish first this season, and they lost it quite, 8 points is a lot, especially when they've been like bossing the league. So Inter Milan comes back and nicks one off of AC Milan. I'm sure that was a big event. Valverde is the Swedish national team manager. CDB, as you might expect, is by far the highest paid or valued player in the entire squad, but he does have some competition. Kulusevski is at 125 to 376 million. Rooney why did I try that? 135 to 404 million. Isak is still in the squad, 108 to 325 million. So I said by far, he's got some competition, I guess. Let's go back because we noticed that was like 3 days after the last episode. They were going to have the quarterfinals for the Euros against Poland. They do win that 3-0. CDB does a 7.0. Then they take on Denmark in the semifinal and lose. Isak gets the only goal for Sweden in the 87th minute. They had a man sent off in the 77th minute. Not ideal. Also, CDB's not involved. Interesting decision. I think that's just a tiredness thing. He's listed over here with just good, and that's at the end of the game, having not played all game. So maybe they just rested him, but it cost them. But he is involved in the Nations League A group team. He does a 6.5 in a draw against England. Not the best start. Bounces back 3 days later with a 7.8 with the, it was at the time the winning goal, and then it turns out to be the equalizing goal in a 2-2 draw against Germany. And then they draw with Scotland. Go on, Scotland. He does a 6.2. What happened there? Not a whole lot, but it comes off in the 60th minute. They then take on Germany. Am I wrong in thinking that that's a lot of games between September 23rd and October 3rd? Are there only usually just 2 games in window? That's 4. Okay, correct me in the comments if I'm just thinking of that incorrectly. They lose to Germany 3-1. He does a 6.7, comes off, it comes out, but has a knock in the game. Gets subbed off in the 27th minute. That's why they lost. Then they turn around and play England in November, losing again, 3-1. CDB again on a 6.2. This time he's not alone. There's a bunch of, again, the keeper with a 5.5. My goodness. Scotland gets another draw. CDB does a 7.1 there. Scotland's still relegated, but wait a minute. How did they get relegated? Didn't they? I guess the only draws they got were against Sweden. Okay, fair enough. Sweden on just 4 points, though. The fact that they stayed up with England and Germany in the mix, I think is probably admirable. CDB, you can tell me in the comments if you agree or not. Then coming into 2029, he starts in a loss against Italy. This is now World Cup qualifiers. They beat Kazakhstan 4-0. He does a 7.8, doesn't score, but lots of other people do, obviously. Then they lose twice to Ireland, and we will have to see if Greg is in the team. We'll wait on that until we get to Greg. But CDB does an 8.0. The keeper, what is with the keepers, my friends? I'm just seeing this. Jacob Waddell Zetterstrom does a 4.8 and comes off with an injury. Well, the 4.8 must have been before that because they gave up 3 goals in the first 61 minutes of the match. So that's clearly, it wasn't like he gave up a penalty by, a dog so, right? Like, and getting sent off. He gets hurt, or he claims he was hurt. His pride was hurt. Golly, that is rough. That is rough. 3-1 victory for Ireland, and then another 3-1 victory where CDB does a 7.1. What is happening in Ireland? They're currently top of their qualifying section with the likes of Italy, Georgia, Sweden, and Kazakhstan. I mean, it's early, and Italy do have a game in hand, but still. So yeah, you could say he real good, folks. The attribute octagon is almost all into the dark green except the aerial threat. He's 5'10", jumping reach of 10 and heading of 13, so he's not a superb threat there. But everything else is really tasty, and he's 21. What do you think? Does he stay with AC Milan? Does he is he a lifer? Does he peak there? I'm curious why he is concerned, and what is the ceiling for this guy? Good grief. We're not going to spend the entire time looking at this. Obviously, CDB has all sorts of milestones, right? Best 11s, etc., etc. But yeah, he's quite good. He's quite good. Swedish midfielder of the year in 2028. In his MLS days, he was the MLS Landon Donovan Most Valuable Player Award winner and the Young Player of the Year. Go on then. Chris Carpenter is next on my short list, so we'll go to him. Oh, it doesn't look like he played. He is wanted, though. His contract is up in a year. Oh, his nationality has changed. Let's take a look at what's going on here. He has declared for San Marino, and he makes his international debut 18 days ago against the Faroe Islands. His favored personnel is their international coach. It's clearly not the Dortmund staff. Roberto Civoli, who took over in 2023. So Chris gets some football. Did he get any club football? No, I know that's this season. Also, no, none last season. Now, okay, well, he doesn't even have a listing for the second team in that season. And he only has 1 non-competitive start and 1 sub, but now he's showing up in the second team. So it's like he showed up in the second team for a season, then in the senior team in the Bundesliga, and then back to the second team right now. I'm trying to understand that. On the second team squad listing, he's listed still as a future prospect on 22.5 a week. I'm wondering if they had kept him in the senior team as like the emergency backup, left back, right back, because in January they signed Benjamin Henrichs for 30 million, rising to 40 million, who looks to be left or right back. So maybe they needed reinforcing then. And they also signed Lucas Klosterman, who's really more of a center back, but also could play left or right back in a bind. But those guys are 32 and 33. So I'm wondering if Chris was kind of left in the squad as like, we're probably not going to use you. You're a future prospect, but we need to register you in case. And then they had to go and reinforce in January. I feel like I'm uncovering a mystery here. So they did sell, but this is like a couple days ago, one of their starters for a lot of money, Julian Ryerson. Or is he a starter? 17.5 million? Yeah, 25 starts. And they also sold last summer Kirkez. So he would have been the left back. And they'd also these are 2 like left back, right backs that were let go on freeze. So I'm just wondering if it was like they kind of had a bit of a crisis because we all know finding left backs and right backs is incredibly difficult at that position. And so Chris was left in the squad, but like not as we ever plan to play you. But then Henrichs comes in and they reinforce in January. Maybe? And Dortmund equal Bayern Munich on points. Bayern has more goals for, less goals against, and obviously a better goal difference. I don't know what the sorting rules are. It doesn't matter. They equal the points of Bayern Munich, but don't get it over the line. Would Chris have gotten technically that on his milestones? I'm not sure because he didn't play. And to be fair, they did finish strong, right? So in their last 4 games, they win 3 of them and get a draw. So it's one of those, like, you have to be almost perfect to beat Bayern, and you weren't. Although in the season, they did beat Bayern 3-1, and then early in the season, they drew with them. So, it's like you dropped points against Eintracht Frankfurt, Freiburg, and Bochum. Bochum probably finished somewhere near, that's the game that cost you the title. I know we're not, that's Chris, that's tangentially related to Chris. So let's go back to Chris. He's wanted by St. Pauli in the Zweite Bundesliga, but he's not the first choice option for the position, which is not exactly a ringing endorsement. Let's just see what happened with St. Pauli. They finished 13th, so it's not like they're in the Bundesliga and got promoted. They're actually in the Zweite Bundesliga, and they're not a great team, and Chris is not considered to be the leading prospect. We'll just have to see because he's only got a year left on his contract. Okay, to be fair, he does have the optional extension that they could, but it's like, you're not playing him. Is he really going to want to do that? Is he going to be happy about that? His value is 22 to 65 grand. The milestones are pretty bare. We will go look at his San Marino experience because that's like, well, at least I could play. And here's something. He's our first player we have that has top player, I think, on their national team. A guy who hasn't played in a bunch of seasons is your top player. I guess that's welcome to being San Marino, right? He looks to be maybe they're starting right back now. So, maybe that's where he's made that move strategically to get some playing time, one game, and also get some exposure maybe by, like playing in some World Cup qualifying and things like that. And he does all right against the Faroe Islands. He does make the bench against Romania, so he must have declared before then on June 9th, right? But then on the 12th in the Faroe Islands, he starts, does the 6.9. They get the draw thanks to a penalty, but they then give up a goal in the 83rd minute to not get the win. But they're getting points. How many points do they have? Just the 2, but over 4 games, you're San Marino, right? So Chris does have the opportunity coming into the autumn to play some international matches, and does that help him get a move? Because it's clear I don't think he's going to be playing for Dortmund. And I would think at this point, he's probably like, I need to get out of here. Last but not least, we go back to where I think is still Italy. It's going to be for Greg Bros. I'm looking at the camera, not at the screen. Yes, he's still with Parma. It was Parma, right? Yes, it was Parma that paid now 3.5 million. No, it wasn't Parma. No, it wasn't. It was Torino. I was like, that doesn't sound right in my head, but it looked, I saw the 2 listings. I was like, yeah, we went over that. No, we didn't go over that. Okay, interesting. So is this a January move? It gets 22 total appearances. That would be a full season move, wouldn't it? But he also gets 3 starts and a cup start for Torino. He does all right in the league, a 703, not bad. But then he moves to Parma, where he gets 22 starts, 9 assists, and a 692, and 4 international substitute appearances. When did this happen? At the very end, or at least what I think is towards the very end, has to be, of the last summer window, September 1st. So Torino pay 500 grand. They play him just a little bit. They actually play him to start the season, and then Parma come in, and boom, we're going to take him for 3.5 million, and then play him a bunch. So has he moved up in the world? I'm not sure in this point in the save which team is better, but let's just look here real quick. So he's got a deal until 2033, so another 4 years from now. Got 1.9 left on that loyalty bonus. Minimum fee release clause of 9 million, so a little less than 3 times what they paid for him. He also gets a sell-on fee percentage of 5% if he gets sold again, and he's on 43 grand a week. Not bad, sir. Okay, I do recall Torino was just above the relegation zone in 2027/2028. In that part of the save, Parma was in 13th on 45 points, so clearly better. Last season, Torino finished 13th. Parma actually finished 14th, 4 points behind Torino, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But both teams now kind of, at least last season, pretty far away from the relegation zone. So I don't know if it's a moving up in the world by moving to Parma, but it's not moving down. It's like, I don't know if that's a positive thing or not. They have bounced back from relegation kind of rebuilt, got promoted, got relegated, got promoted again, and then finished 13th and then 14th. So kind of consolidating their position, being smart about their spend. Here's $3.5 million to go get a really good looking, I think, left winger. I'd say looking at Parma's transfer signings that he's about average. They've got one player that's a 14 million, then a 7.25, a 5.5, a 7.75. But I mean, so he's probably below the average. They send 60 million total, but that's over a whole bunch of players. So it's not an insignificant investment in Greg. His value now, interesting because he's got that 9 million release clause, is 4.5 to 13.5 million, which, okay, all right. Is he a left midfielder for Parma? He's an attacking mid left. It looks like, again, we were like, hey, Torino has that spot. Well, it turns out Greg's moving to Parma. Is right now, we'll check the squad screen, looks to be starting there maybe. He is on a star player contract. Yes, he is starting there. Okay, they only dropped 3.5 million, but he's considered a star player. Interesting. It will be interesting to see if he sticks around there. Like, is it better for his career, even though his value is above that 9 million, for him to stay where he's considered a star player and like really like get a season or two in the same system maybe and not get relegated and keep plugging along? Because I think if another team comes along and pays 9 million, he probably drops out of that star player down to like, you know, some squad player or something like that. So is this a really good move for him? Again, here's his milestone screen. We've already saw the stuff in 2028, you know, from the international goal and cap, first cap against Albania, first goal against Greece. He's named in the Parma seasonal best 11 and the Irish seasonal best 11 as well. So he's all right. Again, you could pause if you want to go deeper. Now, clearly he didn't get as much playing time with Ireland, which is kind of a disappointment. He is on the sub bench though, and he is competing with Kieran Hoey, who looks to be a regen, who looks to be quite good, to be fair. So is that going to keep Greg out of the squad, or just as like one of those I'm involved, you know, from the bench type players? Like one of the other players, I think it was Gustav, he doesn't play at all in the Nations League, which is so interesting how there's like a difference there. But he does come off the bench several times in World Cup qualifying thus far. So he does a 7.0 in the win against Kazakhstan. He does a 6.6 in a friendly against Slovenia. And again, they beat Sweden 3-1 twice. He does a 6.9 off of the bench the first time and a 6.8 off the bench the second time. So more World Cup qualifiers coming up. But again, I think he's got some competition for his spot that he's most natural in there. So not sure how much game time he's actually going to get. I kind of feel like Greg is our late bloomer. He was in Ireland for what felt like forever, but critically, I think it was those continental exposure appearances for Shelburne and Shamrock that have helped him move along. And now he's playing for a decent Serie A team who value him highly. He's on a star player contract, 43 grand a week, expecting to start every week. I think that's really potentially good for his development. The question is, will he still be there in a year? So my friends, we once again get to the end. I've got the values ranked for you there. I almost feel like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, I feel like we have now 5 players that need moves, not 4. Marcus, Gustav, James, Chase, and Chris, I think all need moves. I think obviously Chris needs the move the most, but the other ones aren't far behind despite being paid, you know, very handsomely. That is interesting. And Chris, again, is like the most urgent because he's in the last year of his contract, although they could extend it. So if you've enjoyed this, again, my friends, hit the like button. Let me know who you think needs a move the most, maybe, because I think it's clear that many of them need moves, but who is like the most urgent for you? And we'll see you next time.